Hi everyone, it's Jeanette here from the Sewing Studio with a big cheesy grin, you've probably noticed, because I've been having so much fun. I know I say that a lot, but I really have with this one. Now I'm going to call this an assignment. I was asked here, Jeanette, would you make us a puff quilt? So, of course, the answer is going to be yes, and it was a lot of fun to do, and it was fairly quick. It's definitely something you could perhaps make in a weekend. So let's just get straight on with it and make it. I just need to mention the fabrics I've used was a charm pack mostly, and this was speckled by Ruby Star. And I just, love the colours, or we love the colours here. But there was also some sort of darker colours in it, which I've sort of taken out. So I really just sort of kept with the sort of softer, more sort of baby prints really, or colours in it, apart from this very, very sort of bright pink. But I just sort of selected. Now this light blue was a light blue that was also in the charm packs, but we have it here on the bowl, and I chose that as my sort of contrast fabric to sort of beef up the quantities I needed. So I've done this as a 7 by 7, so 49 little blocks, just for sort of a little baby size quilt. But it's so floofy. Everybody that's seen it sort of comes over and gives it a little pat, and it's just very, very tactile. So, as I said, let's just get straight on with making it. We'll give it one little final pat and move it slightly out the way, but not too much. So what we're going to do is, I started by making all my 49 what I call pockets. And to do that, I've taken one of the charm squares. You need to cut a 4.5 inch square. Now this piece of fabric isn't going to be seen, so you can use up, if you've got any ugly fabrics in your stash that you're thinking, I'm never going to use that in a quilt, this is going to be perfect for it. I've just used sort of a white here that I had in my stash, and you want to cut those at 4.5 inches. Now I'm going to make 2 blocks here, so I can just sort of chain them through. And what we're going to do is fit the 5 inch squares onto those 4.5 inch squares. Now some people just sit at the machine and do it as they go. However, I found it easier by pinning, and I know there's lots of my friends now will be very shocked because I don't pin very much, but I just found it a bit quicker and a bit easier to pin. So I'm going to start by just putting a pin in those 2 corners, and I worked on 5 or 6 blocks at a time, so I'd pin 5 or 6 and then I'd sit in the machine and just send them through sewing, and I just found by doing it that way it just sort of speeded up the whole process for me really. And let's just do this one. Now these are also shades, as I said, that were in the charm pack. And I just selected the ones out that I felt worked really nice for a little baby quilt. There we are. So I'm going to take that to the machine and show you how to make the pockets. Now I'm actually going to start by sewing a scant 1/4 inch, or actually just, and this is just going to be a tacking stitch. So I don't want my full 1/4 inch yet, so I'm just going to use the inside of that foot there as my guide. And I should just say we're using the Brother VQ2. So this little foot that comes with this one is ideal. I don't really have to move the needle or anything. And the first thing you do is just sort of make a fold there. But because I've pinned, it just folds really easily. So I can take that pin out now. Let's just take a couple of stitches. And away we go. And I can just keep sewing. And then I can feed the next one through. I'm just going to put my hover function on. But by having those pins in, I could almost just keep sewing without stopping. To make that fold. And like I say, I'd have 5 or 6 and I just chain them all through. And then once I've got one side down, I went back through and just pinned. Now I just need 1 pin to pin that corner, and we're going to sew that side. Now you want to make the tuck just somewhere near the middle. It doesn't have to be exactly in the middle, but just somewhere near the middle. And I'm just going to carry on doing that for 3 sides. So 3 sides will be sewn. So I found just using those pins just meant that I could sew a bit faster. I wasn't having to stop. I could just keep going. So it just went quite quickly for me if I did that. So on both of these, let me put them under the close-up. So you can see we've got 3 sides sewn on those. Now I went ahead and made all my pockets first till all 49 were made, and then I laid them out however I wanted them, and then I started to sew together in rows. So let's just put these together. Now when we're going to sew these together in rows, we want to do it with our accurate 1/4 inch now. It was only just this first seam that I was using just a narrower than 1/4 inch. So we're now going to piece those 2 blocks together, and I'm just going to bring in one that I've already sewn. I'm just doing sort of a 4-row version here just on camera. So that's what we're going to end up with once we start putting them together. So let me just go and sew that 1/4 inch. And we need to make sure we're leaving the side that we haven't sewn, I leave that to the right hand side. And they're both on the right hand side there. So let me just put that under the camera so you can see. There's our first line of sewing there, and that was what I'm calling my tacking stitch. And then there's our second row of sewing right there, which is our 1/4 inch seam. So we've put those together. So if I was doing a row of 7, these would then get attached. So I went through and I made all my rows and then labelled all my rows, row 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So once I had my 7 rows done, so they're not stuffed at this point, starting with row 1, all the open seams on the right hand side, and then we're just going to start to stuff. Now I'm just using this super soft toy filling that we sell here in the shop, and I weighed it, I didn't weigh all of it, don't worry, I haven't gone that mad. I just weighed it so I could tell you guys, and I just give it a bit of a floof, how much I sort of put in per pocket. So if you were doing something a different size, you can work out how much stuffing you're going to need. And I worked out it was about 3 grams per little pocket. And I think somebody here asked me, you know, how did you get them all so uniform? And I just put some stuffing in, and then I just sort of went back and sort of felt them and went, yep, that feels all about right. Now my top tip is don't overstuff them, because we're going to have to still work with this, and I think it just needs just a little bit more. And if you overstuff them, it makes the next steps a little bit more problematical. So you want enough in there that you can sort of move it out the way to get there to sew. So once we've got that stuffed, I'm going to take that back to the machine. And don't forget here now, this side is still 5 inches. So we need to sort of put our pleat in there to get that to match that square underneath. And I did do that bit. I mean, you could go through and sort of pin it all, but I did do this bit at the machine. But we're going to go back in with our narrower than 1/4 inch. So I'm probably sewing about 1/8 inch, maybe a little bit bigger, but certainly we want to be under the 1/4 inch. So let's just go and do that. So I'm just going to start and get part way down just to help hold some of this loose fabric, and then I'll make my little pleat and then just sew to the end. So I'm just sort of keeping that stuffing a little bit out of the way. So once I got to about there, I'm just going to make my pleat and get that to fit, and then we can carry on with our seam. Now because we've got that stuffing in there, things do want to move, the fabrics do want to move, because that polyfill is trying to pull this top fabric away from the edge. So we're just going to keep it where we need it. So there we are, we've got it stuffed and we've just tacked everything in. And I just found by doing that tacking, it's easier than trying to add this bit now with that untacked and you've got lots of pins. So it was almost like just, you know, lots of pins, lots of tacking made this go a lot simpler. And now what we're going to do is we're going to attach row 2. So this is going to be my row 2. And we're going to see which way our seams have gone, and we're just going to make the seams go in opposite directions because we're going to try to match these as best as we can. You don't really see them, but they are there if anybody looks. So that seam's going down, so I'm just going to push that seam up. Now you could just go through and make sure all your seams are going down in one row and then up in the next and then down and then up. But I just tended to make them match. Now I'm going to do a lot of pinning here. So I'm going to pin at the beginning because what will happen because of this filling is this fabric will want to move. So pins are our friends on this bit. So I'm going to pin that corner and then I'm going to just make sure those edges line up. Because if we don't, we are going to see our stitches. So lots of pins here. So it's one of those where we just go methodically and just take our time at this point because things will come together a lot better if we do that. And just pull that under one up. Just so that it meets, because I say it does want to move away. And then once we've got it all pinned, we're going to take it back to the machine and then we're going to do our proper 1/4 of an inch again, and that will hide those tacking stitches. Now, as we're doing this, we really want to just sort of keep that filling out the way. So I just put some pressure on there and just sort of flatten it as best we can. And off we go. So there we are, we've got our 2 rows sewn together, and if we check, we shouldn't see any of our previous stitches from the tacking. And like I say, if we have, it's probably because our fabrics have shifted. So once I've got my 2nd row on, I'm going to go back in again and stuff, and then just keep repeating that. So once that row's stuffed, I'll add my 3rd row, and then stuff that one, add my 4th row, and then stuff that one, all the way until you get to your end row. And then once you get to your end row, I just did a tacking stitch again, just to finish that row off to complete the quilt, and your quilt top is done. So I found that was the easiest way to sort of attach stuff, rather than trying to put together 2 rows that already had the stuffing in them. It was just sort of too much bulk and everything was moving about too much. So it's really quite simple to do, but do take your time. Just be very mindful of making sure your edges line up, that your fabrics aren't shifting. But just that process of pinning, tacking, just made everything come together really quite quick and quite simply. So I think there was a couple of points I went back and sort of matched, but overall it just all came together really quite quickly. So let's just have a look at how I've finished the quilt, because that's how we make the rows. So let me turn it over as well. Now some people, you've got the option, you can either put wadding behind it as well. Now it's already quite sort of floofy, so it doesn't need wadding, but I chose to put wadding in mine. 1, it just makes it a little bit more plush, but 2, for me, I felt it helped stabilise the backing fabric. So what I did is I cut a piece of wadding that was bigger than my square, my top, and the same with the backing, and I attached the backing to the wadding. So basically I had the quilt top and then the backing already on the wadding. And then I very carefully went round, making sure I just straightened out my edges as much as I could from the quilt top and pinned all the way round. And then once I pinned, I went back in again with my tacking stitch so that everything was being held. Now, as you're doing that, you really do want to just squash the polyfill out the way so that your machine foot can get there. Now, I'm really fortunate that I've got a narrow walking foot that I could do mine with. But like I say, you just need to boss the filling about. But a walking foot definitely helps with this project and stops things shifting around too much, because there's quite a lot going on with it. Once I'd got that secured down, I actually trimmed, and because I used wadding and I wanted to do a little bit of a wider binding, I actually trimmed 1/8 of away from the quilt top. So I had 1/8 of an inch of wadding and extra backing fabric showing. And that just gave me a little bit more of what I'm going to call a shelf to give myself a little bit of a wider binding without sort of going too much into the filled pockets. I cut my binding at 2 3/4 inches and just did my single fold binding, and I stitched it on with a 1/2 inch seam rather than a 3/4 because I wanted a more of a frame around this one. Now 2 3/4 was sort of quite close to making sure that I'd covered all the stitches, so you might want to go up to a 3 to give yourself a little bit more room. But you know, it's quite, by that point it was quite tricky to get under the machine. You can do it, but like I say, just take your time. But I just hand stitched the binding on the back like I would a normal quilt anyway. But it's really plush, it's really soft. It's definitely something, I keep looking at it thinking my sister's dog would love to come and sleep on this, I think. But really a lot of fun to do. Definitely something you could do in a weekend. I think it took me probably about 8 hours to make the whole thing from sort of start to finish. So hopefully you can give this a go and you have a great success. Now let me just talk a little bit about the quilting before I finish. So you can just see here, I just did some lines of quilting in it. And this is where my arms really had a workout because I put my narrow walking foot on and I just stitched in the ditch all the way through. But I was really having to, you know, sort of press the filling out the way and sort of getting that seam as open as I could. So really sort of good workout for the arms. And I just did it in one direction, because all you just need to do is make sure that you're attaching your puff quilt top to your backing, whether that's got wadding with it or whether it's just a single fabric. If you find it difficult to get your machine through the rows of stitching, what some people traditionally, I think they used to tie these, they would make a little cross in all of these little junctions here and tie and put the tie on the back. So you can do that. Some people just hand stitch a little cross there, just to hold everything to the backing. But like I say, I found it okay with the walking foot just to go through. And all through this, and I'm going to keep repeating this, just take your time. Just take your time, there's no rush, but it comes together quite nicely. And I'm really pleased with how it's turned out. It's actually quite heavy for a little quilt because there's a lot of stuffing, as well as the wadding and the fabrics in it. But there's our little puff quilt. So if you do give it a go, please do share your photos with us. I think I'd love to see this in different colourways because I think they would all look absolutely great. So share your photos. We're on Instagram and we're on Facebook, or you can email them directly to us here. So have fun with it. Do share any of your makes with us, not just puff quilts, anything you're doing. Thank you for your time today, and I hope you'll join us again here next time in the sewing studio.